Hello all, I'm Wadabra. Welcome back to Adastra. It's probably obvious that I've just moved and I don't have my recording closet set up just yet, so I'm going to sound like this for the rest of the intro. I've also run out of time before I have to leave for a week, so there'll be no after reading at the end of this. However, the rest of the audio in this episode was recorded before the move, so it should sound normal. Alright, so quick recap. In the last episode, Marco and Amicus had a heart-to-heart, got most of their emotional shit together, and then Amicus won the second trial. Yay him! The fact that Cassius has not yet backed down from the final challenge means nothing. Definitely don't look into that. After the trial, Neferu had a little chat with Marco, letting him know that he's not in the clear just yet. Amicus may have technically won, but it was obvious from the unanimous triumvirate votes, despite Cassius's winning show, that the trial was rigged, and more specifically, that Cassius suspects it was Marco who tipped them off. The episode ends with Marco in Amicus's room, waiting for the wolf to return. And that's the recap. Remember to like and share this video to help me appease the almighty YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episode. And as always, content warnings and a link to my Patreon can be found in the description below. Let's get started. It's strange. Amicus won, but it doesn't exactly feel that way after what Neferu just told me. Amicus didn't genuinely win. We'd won because of a rumor, basically making the entire trial thing pointless. Still, I can't exactly feel bad about that. Cassius bugged this very room to show footage of Amicus fucking Neferu. I close my eyes, rubbing them with a hand as I realize how much that might have damaged Amicus's reputation. Not only do the people realize that this trial was decided from the beginning by the corrupt triumvirates, but also that their soon-to-be emperor had sex with a male, a Chemian male at that. But again, Cassius losing because of his intention to get rid of one of the few checks on his power seems like karma to me. Weren't they keeping the emperor's power in check by making the decision that they did? Technically, Amicus will become emperor now, though I guess it won't be official until Cassius actually concedes the third trial. I turn these thoughts over and over in my head for the next 20 minutes, a bit annoyed by the fact that even though I got exactly what I wanted, several issues had to come with it. Suddenly, the door slides open, and I forget my worry for just a moment as I see Amicus standing there. He only gets a few steps into the room before I'm already there, wrapping my arms around his body as I hug him.
Whoa. Hey, Marco. Everything all right?
The wolf sets a heavy paw on my head, rubbing the pads gently against my scalp. Are you?
Of course.
Amicus smiles down at me warmly, but having known him this long, I know that's not exactly true. Well, we won.
We did.
He's quiet for a bit, continuing to rub my head. And this isn't really how I imagined it would go. Amicus laughs softly.
Neither did I, but we did win, and that's the important part.
Amicus hugs me tightly again. Is what Cassius did, what he showed, how bad was that? Amicus grimaces.
Bad. But I'll find a way to get through that. Seems my first job as emperor will be rebuilding my image.
When do you become emperor?
As soon as Cassius gives up. I don't think he's in the mood to do that quite yet, though.
We stand there for a while, Amicus continuing to stroke my head as I lean it against his chest, listening to the soft beat of his heart. I'm just glad it's over.
I feel the same.
So, What next?
Well, for now, I must go to the city. The triumvirates requested the imperial family be seen at once.
Oh, why?
Well, everyone assumes the trial's to be over. They'd like to discuss things with the family before they leave Adastra for their own cities.
I see.
They also requested that you go.
I lean back to look up at the wolf. Really?
Yes, though I told them not to expect it. I know you wanted to see the city, but it's up to you. Well, it won't be the actual city, just the district where the delegates live. Things are a bit chaotic in the city center at the moment.
Chaotic?
The citizens are excited after the trial.
Ah. I imagine excited means angry. I could, but doing official stuff seems kinda scary.
You wouldn't have to do anything. Just look happy to be there. But it's up to you.
Would it help you?
Possibly. I would certainly be happy to have you there.
Then sure. The wolf's eyebrows go up in surprise.
Oh, really? Well, all right then. Let's go.
Now?
Yes, I believe the others are already in the chariot. Are you ready?
I think so. Unless I need to bring anything.
Not at all. And sorry, I know things are moving a bit fast at the moment. It's to be expected after the trial, but we can talk in private when we get back, all right?
Okay. Amicus is already turning to pull me along, but I stop him. When he turns, I do what I'd wanted to do since right before the trial started, and I kiss him on the lips. The chariot is really just a large metallic carriage. It has benches inside with an open top. There are no horses, of course, and it seems to move on its own. It is the first time that I've ever seen wheels being used for transportation here, though. As we're walking up to it, I notice Virginia and Neferu already sitting in the front, and Cassius is in the back with Alex. He's very deliberately looking away from us. I whisper to Amicus as we get closer to the chariot. Cassius is going?
Yes. I think Kato made him go.
Despite everything the White Wolf has done, especially in the trial, I can't help but feel a little sorry for him. I can't imagine having to go out in public right after your years-long campaign was defeated. Amicus hops in first, sitting next to Virginia, before reaching down to me to pull me up next to him. I'd thought we'd be flying there.
We usually do, but since the ship we used to take to the city, crashed a few months ago, we decided the chariot is safer and more inconspicuous.
Yes, something that will come in handy considering the state of the city right now.
Yes.
What's the state of the city? Virginia fixes her eyes on me, really looking at me for the first time in a while.
Riots, looting, the usual, though a bit unusual for Adastra City compared to, say, Lux.
Amicus glances at me, but that's when there's a sudden jerk as the chariot moves forward toward the tree line. Virginia looks at Amicus.
I must say, your pet is much more fascinating than I'd originally thought. He could barely speak when I first met him.
Yes, he was shy.
I guess I should have told Amicus that my act had been exposed at this point.
Well, we must reconnect with this Simia then. They seem oddly intelligent.
Yes. Oh, thank the gods for the trees. Vita is much too harsh today.
Amicus clearly tries to change the subject as the road turns into the thick forest. We're blanketed in an eerie green glow as the forest envelops us. Strange glowing insects fly around the carriage, and I notice how ancient the trees look, gnarled and rough, almost completely blocking out the sky. Amicus glances over at the jackal.
I have to wonder what brought you along, Neferu?
My presence was requested.
By whom?
Oh, for the sake of Vita, don't start, Amicus.
What? I'm simply curious.
No, you're trying to start a fight, which is the last thing we need in front of the triumvirates. Besides, isn't your policy to befriend Chemians?
An alliance isn't a friendship.
Chemians see it as a friendship.
Besides, everyone probably thinks you're already very close after what was broadcast.
Virginia!
She hides her smirk behind the fan as Neferu grins beside her.
I'm simply reminding you that it might still be fresh in everyone's mind when we get there.
Amicus slumps in his seat, legs stretched out in front of him.
All the more reason to seem distant. That will probably affect my reputation for years.
Oh, don't be so dramatic. The people love such scandals. They simply pretend to be outraged.
Amicus snorts, but doesn't say anything more, signaling that the conversation is over. I wonder if Cassius, sitting right behind us, is listening in. Probably. I find the whole thing strange. The wolf that tried to sabotage Amicus by leaking what was basically a porno, sitting right behind us. I turn my head ever so slightly, trying to look back at Cassius to see if he's looking at us. I don't see anything, so I turn around more fully and find that the white wolf is laying down, eyes closed with his head in Alex's lap. Alex looks up at me and smiles with a wave. I wave back awkwardly before quickly turning around. Virginia and Neferu seem to be caught up in their own conversation at the moment, while Amicus continues to sulk, staring at his feet. So, what exactly is going to happen when we get there?
Oh, well, the meeting with the triumvirates, as I said earlier. After that, we'll likely get to walk the streets of the district to visit the shops and a restaurant.
So, I'll just stand next to you?
Yes.
All right. For the rest of the ride, I lean against Amicus's side, and after several minutes, I start to nod off. Amicus notices and wraps an arm around me, and I'm able to comfortably lean against his chest to fall asleep. The next thing I know, I'm being nudged awake by Amicus. I find myself staring at several buildings, the sudden change in scenery leaving me dazed. I'm still trying to get my bearings as Amicus hops out of the carriage, reaching up to lift me down. When I look back up, I'm able to see a large group of wolves off to the side, watching us intently. Immediately, I feel self-conscious, the crowd being the largest gathering of wolves that I've seen in person. They come in all shapes and sizes, and I'm surprised to see a few of them are almost as short as I am. The one characteristic that they all seem to share, though, is their thick-bodied stature. Amicus guides me around to stand in front of the chariot with Neferu, Virginia, Cassius, and Alex, holding me close to his side. One of the old wolves steps forward from the group.
Welcome, Imperial family. Thank you so much for coming on this day of the second trial. It was a marvelous show.
That seems like a bold thing to say after a clip of Neferu and Amicus having sex was shown.
There doesn't seem to be any awkwardness, though, the old wolves looking eager to talk to Amicus.
I am Cicero, first triumvirate of Ad Rote.
The old wolf walks forward toward Amicus, setting a paw on the bigger wolf's shoulders and touching the sides of their muzzles together. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Cassius shooting us a sour, angry look. The wolf and Amicus hold a short conversation, the older wolf asking Amicus what he thought of Ad Rote, what problems the city was currently having, and how they might proceed in the future. After that, he then moves on to Virginia, where the conversation is much shorter. Another wolf from the group moves forward to talk to Amicus, the conversation following a roughly similar pattern. There's no talk about Amicus being emperor, but the assumption is there, and when each of them get to Cassius, it's almost as equally brief as it was with Virginia. And despite the novelty of this situation, I quickly become bored, and the conversations blend together very quickly as over a dozen of these old wolves come forward to introduce themselves to Amicus. For his part, Amicus does a really good job of seeming enthusiastic for each introduction, mentioning that he already knows who they are and that he thinks very, very highly of their city and region. Occasionally, they'll glance at me and comment on how strange I look, though it's usually with a positive tone, congratulating Amicus on snagging me. That does seem to make Amicus uncomfortable, but I keep a straight face and bow each time, seeming to delight the old wolves with my etiquette. Eventually, these introductions end, but as we start to move toward the shops, the triumvirates continue to follow us, and I find myself having a harder time keeping up with Amicus. He's practically surrounded by the triumvirates. I give up on trying to stay next to him, and even though he keeps glancing at me and calls me a few times, I just wave him on, choosing instead to walk alongside Neferu and Virginia. Sure, it's annoying, but he's about to become emperor, so it makes sense that he's so popular. As we walk through the streets, wolves call out to Amicus from doorways and windows, and he tries to wave at all of them. Further up the road, a group of children, puppies, show up with flowers in their paws, handing them out to Amicus and the triumvirates. As I watch this happening, I notice a particularly patchy-looking child, no taller than my waist, standing off to the side awkwardly, looking right at me as she holds a flower in her paws. I pause, unsure if she means to give it to me. When I do, she moves closer. So I bend over, reaching out, and her eyes widen, probably simultaneously horrified and fascinated at getting the crazy alien's attention. Nevertheless, she comes closer and shyly pushes the crumpled, wilted flower into my hands before suddenly leaning in and touching the side of her face to mine. For a moment, I see her watery, bloodshot eyes. Then I feel her slightly damp fur brush my skin before she makes an odd yelping sound and runs off down the street. I stare after her, wondering if I'd done something wrong.
Found yourself a gift?
I look down at the wilted flower, noticing that several petals are missing. I guess.
That one didn't look healthy, did she?
Not really.
Maybe Cassius had a point with his speech.
I think they both made good points, honestly. Neferu gestures at the gaggle of wolves moving further and further away from us.
Better catch up before they leave us behind.
Yeah. I look down at the flower again, a bit uneasy now, before dropping it to the road, feeling a little guilty as I do. Even though the ceremony is technically over, the triumvirates don't seem to want to leave Amicus alone. I'm kind of amazed at how well Amicus is dealing with them, considering how irritated I'm feeling. Amicus tries to bring me over to his side a few times, pointing out trinkets and souvenirs that he tries to explain, as if wanting to show me a bit of Adastran culture. It's nice, and I can tell he wants to involve me, but it's far too busy with triumvirates and locals breaking in every 5 seconds to ask or tell Amicus something.
I wish you could just tell them to go away, but I know it doesn't work like that. On top of this, my joints are really starting to ache from all the walking, and I wonder if living in the palace for so long has made me soft. Eventually, I just trail the group of wolves, browsing the goods after they do. It's interesting, sure, but everything's so similar to what we have on Earth. Necklaces, earrings, brushes, clothes. Nothing all that mind-blowing. Eventually, Amicus very loudly calls out that he'd like to go to a restaurant with his pet, and asks for everyone to please allow him through. I take this as my cue to move to his side, and he immediately puts an arm around mine, holding me close. As we walk up the street, the many wolves still following behind us, Amicus puts his muzzle close to my ear, sending a bit of a chill over my neck, one that's oddly painful.
Everything okay, Marco? You seem a bit uncomfortable.
I shrug. Everything around here is new to me, so I guess I do feel a little bit off.
Well, let's settle down in a restaurant. We can cool off and catch our breath there.
The wolf gives me a quick squeeze with his arm, and despite my slightly sour mood, I can't help but smile a bit. I mean, it is kind of cool that my friend is so popular, even if it's because he's going to be the next emperor. We walk into a small but cozy restaurant, and I can tell right away that it's rather upscale, with its carved pillars and the fancy tapestries on the wall. Then again, everything in this district is kind of upscale, I guess. The triumvirates follow us right into the restaurant, though, and I let out a frustrated sigh. Amicus notices right away and signals at a wolf standing behind a podium. This particular wolf is staring at us wide-eyed, apparently gobsmacked at seeing the soon-to-be emperor show up in his restaurant. He practically trips over himself to get to us, banging his hip on the side of a table as he does.
Yes, Your Majesty.
Amicus grimaces.
Just Amicus, please. Could you get us a secluded table? Preferably one with no one seated next to us.
Of course.
The wolf stumbles over himself again before leading us to a corner of the restaurant, gesturing at a table there. He then turns to a couple next to the table and begins to frantically hiss at them to move. They stare at him in astonishment until Amicus steps in to stop him.
They're fine. Just, don't let any of that group over there sit next to us, if that's all right.
Amicus jerks his head over at the gaggle of old wolves, all of them staring at us rather hawkishly.
Oh, yes, of course.
He hurries off towards said group, and we're finally able to sit down, or lay down. And the seats are, of course, in the Roman style. Amicus settles down with a huge sigh, stretching his big body over the bed.
Sorry about that. I should have warned you about how frustrating it can be with all the pointless chatter.
I shrug. Seems about right for politics.
Oh, it is. But don't worry. It's rare that all the triumvirates are in the city all at once. This is for the trials, of course.
Yeah, makes sense.
You sure you're okay? I can never seem to tell.
I'm fine. I rub my arms, the skin sensitive and sore, just like my joints. I wonder if I'm getting sunburned too.
All right. So, what do you think of the city? This part of it, at least. I wish I could take you to where the skyscrapers are, but as I said, things are a bit chaotic at the moment.
It's pretty cool. It wouldn't exactly be out of place on Earth. Definitely different, but really similar.
Ah, well, you were uplifted by us after all.
Yeah. So is this what you're gonna do as Emperor? Come to the city and just talk? Amicus chuckles.
Oh, there will be much more to it, I'm sure. I'm hoping Kato will teach me a bit, if he's able to get over the trial.
I remember that Kato did vote for Cassius. He's probably furious about it right now. Won't you have, advisors and stuff?
Well, yes, but I must choose them.
Would you choose Kato?
I could.
Will you?
Well, maybe. But recent events have left me a bit unsure of that.
Why's that? Amicus shakes his head.
Don't worry about it now. We should be celebrating.
I mean, you could be emperor at any moment. Shouldn't you have someone who's got a good head on their shoulders at the ready?
I suppose. Who would you suggest?
I get the feeling that he's goading me into offering myself, but that definitely wouldn't be the case. The few wolves I know make the decision pretty easy. Virginia. Amicus raises his eyebrows in slight surprise.
Oh, well, yes. I would definitely consider her. The only problem is the image of a female telling me what to do. The tail-raiser reputation is bad enough.
I roll my eyes. Maybe wolven masculinity is something you can fix while you're emperor? Amicus doesn't seem to know how to answer that, but he doesn't have to as our food arrives. I'm a bit surprised since we didn't order, but looking around, it seems that everyone gets the same thing. There's the usual olives, grapes, cheese, and bread, but also seafood and even eggs, which surprises me. Amicus thanks the nervous waiter before immediately starting to dig in. I do the same, but while I'm spreading the cheese on my bread, my mind wanders back to what might be happening in the city right now. So, how bad are things in the city? No one seems that concerned about it.
From what I've been told, it's fairly mild. Riots are common in Adastra, but they don't last long. I think the people will calm down within the next few days.
Oh, okay. So they don't, dislike you or anything? It takes Amicus a moment to swallow down his mouthful of bread before speaking.
No. Most of the anger is directed at the triumvirates. I will say, though, I have my work cut out in rebuilding my reputation.
Because of the sex video?
Yes.
Amicus tries to smile it off lightheartedly, but I can see his ears turning red. It must be weird being out in public like this, knowing that everyone saw it.
I was told by one of the triumvirates from Lux to simply say it was fake. Not sure if that will work.
Could be a good idea.
The biggest issue is that it delegitimizes the alliance process with the Chemians. The people will believe that I'm beholden to Neferu somehow.
Amicus's expression finally falls a bit, staring down at the food as his munching slows down. I'm sure they'll get over it. From what I've been told, it seems like they're quick to forget.
Well, yes. As soon as the next scandal comes along. Hopefully one not involving me.
Yeah. We eat in silence a while, and I can tell something heavy is on Amicus's mind. In the meantime, I'm a bit distracted with itching specific spots on my arms, feeling tiny little bumps on my skin. I wonder if I'm allergic to something in the meal, so I stop eating for the moment, choosing instead to lounge out on the bed.
Marco, I've been meaning to ask you something.
Yeah?
Do you want to stay here, even after I become emperor?
The question catches me by surprise, and I'm left to try and gather my thoughts for a moment as Amicus continues to look down. What do you mean? Amicus sighs and glances at me.
I mean, do you want to stay here with me, even if you have the ability to go home?
Amicus quickly looks down again.
I'm sorry, I know it's not my place to ask, but I thought I might as well ask.
I stare at him for a moment, then I look down too. You know I need to go back. At the very least, I need to let my friends and family know that I'm okay. I know that they're looking for me in Italy right now. Probably all of Europe at this point. I need to let them know. Amicus coughs hastily.
Of course.
But that doesn't mean that I don't want to come back. I do. I just know that there are problems. I lower my voice as I remember that we're in a public place and that mentioning illegal first contact would not be a good idea. If we can fix the problems, honestly, I'd love to come back and stay for a long time. I kind of surprise myself with that statement, but it's true. Amicus glances at me in surprise.
Really?
Yeah, if it wasn't a risk to your empire.
Of course. I mean to speak to the parents as soon as I'm able. I'm certain we can figure something out.
The look on Amicus's face right now, so sad, but a little hopeful, reminds me of something that I've been wanting to do for the past week. And Amicus?
Yeah?
I glance around quickly, making sure that the nearby patrons aren't listening. Do you want to date me? The statement, so ridiculous, so silly in this situation, comes out all quiet and weak, but I don't know how else to ask it. That word is so complicated between us now with how I tried to explain it to Amicus. It's something that I don't think I've ever said to anyone before, and just like Amicus, I find myself looking down immediately. It's quiet for a moment, and the restaurant suddenly lights up with a golden hue as the sunset hits the windows just right. I hear a long exhalation and realize that the wolf had been holding his breath. I look up then and see Amicus smiling at me. There's a mixture of happiness and relief on his face, maybe even a little amusement. I guess we've been dancing around it for so long, we both knew by now that it's what we wanted, what we've been building up to.
Of course, Marco. I'm honored that you'd have me.
I even see his eyes glistening a bit, and I want to get up right there and then and join him on his bed, but public setting holds me back. I imagine Amicus is feeling the same way, and I wonder if maybe asking here in public wasn't the best place for it. But it was done, and I feel myself grinning despite myself. The wolf grins right back. Like you said, while I'm here, we might as well get to know each other better. And if you do figure something out, I can come back. Amicus nods and turns his head in a way that he's able to wipe an eye on his shoulder, probably hoping I wouldn't notice. He looks so relieved, and I realize, even after we made up in the meditation room, he was probably still feeling unsure of where we stood romantically. But there are boundaries, and if I'm dating you, you have to tell me everything. And no sleeping around behind my back.
Of course. I've promised to tell you everything, especially everything that concerns you, and I don't ever intend on breaking that promise to you.
And sleeping around? Amicus's ears flick, and he glances over at our neighbors, who are definitely trying to eavesdrop. He lowers his voice a good deal.
Definitely not. Not that I have anyone to be with. But we can discuss all of this when we get back to our room. And
Amicus lowers his voice even more.
Maybe do a little more as well.
His ears flatten as I roll my eyes, but they come back up as I smile. Sure. Immediately, his tail starts thumping the bed, and the eager look on his face has me shaking my head. I can't deny that I'm excited too. Actually, I'm feeling kind of nervous now that I just promised him that. How would we even start? We sit together for a while longer, the conversation moving to more casual topics, like how the districts of the city are divided up. Though, as an hour passes, I start to feel hot and a little dizzy, and when I mention this to Amicus, he suggests we head back to the palace. Vita has completely set by the time we're heading out toward the carriage. Of course, several delegates surround us as we start to head off, but Amicus promises he'll only be 10 minutes, and I head out into the street alone to stand next to the chariot. It's a bit nicer out here in the open air compared to the stuffy restaurant. I can tell now that I'm definitely getting sick, and all of that soreness and exhaustion was just the beginning of a creeping fever that I can feel breaking out across my skin. I end up sitting on the carriage step, head bowed as I feel myself starting to sweat. It's not anything I haven't felt before, but there's an odd prickling sensation underneath it all, like pins and needles just under my skin, leaving me wanting to itch at various places on my body. I just wish Amicus would hurry up. The others too, since I'm the only one standing here. I can't even remember where Nefaru and Virginia went. Someplace shopping, I think.
Simeon.
Cassius's voice is low and quiet to my left, and I glance over to see him leaning up casually against the chariot. I make a half-hearted attempt at bowing at him, sort of just flopping my head in his direction. The wolf glares before walking toward me.
What game are you playing?
Now is probably the worst time for this to happen. Game? I mumble out stupidly, looking toward the restaurant to see if I can see Amicus through the crowd gathered in front.
Do not act stupid. I know you're capable of understanding.
I just shake my head, but immediately regret it as I feel all the food that I'd just eaten roil around in my stomach. I'm really sick, way more than I'd realized, and I can't believe how hard and fast it's hitting me.
Do you remember several weeks back in which you served me during midday meal? Virginia and Nefaru were there?
I just stick to silence now, worried that moving at all is going to make me hurl.
Of course you remember. You told the triumvirates about what I intended to do with them, didn't you?
Cassius moves closer, but the feelings coursing through my body leave me not caring all that much about him right now. I need to get to Amicus. I need to tell him that something's wrong. I hug myself, feeling that prickling sensation erupt to the surface, my skin on my arms and chest and legs burning and itching in the most horrible way. I gasp.
What is that? Some sort of simian language? Listen to me. I want to know what you told them, and how you knew to tell them.
I feel bumps on my arms, bumps that weren't there just minutes ago. I look down, and even though it's hard to see in the darkness, I'm at least able to see that the skin is splotchy and discolored. Shakily, I touch one of the splotches and watch as a tear of clear liquid oozes out. What the hell? Something grabs the front of my robes and pulls me up.
Are you listening, pet? I said...
I was worried about small movements, but that huge lurch pushes my stomach over the edge, and I immediately projectile vomit straight into the middle of Cassius's torso. We both stare at the mess on his fur, which is starting to drip down heavily onto his garments.
Oh gods! Oh gods!
The wolf screeches, and at the same time, I vomit again, right in the same spot. Cassius immediately stumbles back, screeching as he waves his paws uselessly at the mess, then actually starts to retch himself. I'm not able to see if he's actually throwing up too. Instead, I crumple to sit on the ground, feeling the world spin around me. Thankfully, the next thing I hear is Amicus's voice. It sounds like it's coming from far away, even though I can tell that he's crouching right next to me.
What did you do to him, Cassius?
I did nothing.
I hear splattering noises.
Marco, what happened? What's wrong?
I sway, and Amicus lets me lean into him, despite my vomit-covered robes. I don't know.
Was it the food? Are you?
I stick out an arm, and I feel the wolf catch it delicately, examining it.
Gods.
He mumbles it under his breath.
What? What happened? Cassius?
I hear more footsteps, and for some reason, I feel myself becoming embarrassed that everyone's seeing me like this.
That barbarian. He vomited on me.
It sounds like Cassius is about to cry, and for some reason, that's pretty funny to me right now. I try to laugh, but my throat is so sore.
Virginia, he's sick.
We need to get him back to the palace. Get in the carriage.
It's too slow.
I feel the world tilt as I seem to just levitate off the ground. Then I realize that Amicus has picked me up.
The Praetors have much faster vehicles. We could get one from them.
Marco?
I hear his voice, but for some reason I can't respond. It's like a dream.
There's no time. I'm running back.
Amicus!
I feel my body bouncing up and down, thrown left and right. It's like I'm in some kind of demented thrill ride. I reach out into the darkness to stop it somehow, but all I feel is something furry and warm. Everything hurts and itches at the same time. What is this?
Marco, hey, stay with me. I'm here.
Who? I force my eyes to open, even though they burn so much. I stare up at the gnarled things above me, and I wonder what they are. All that comes to mind are bony, skinless hands reaching up to the sky.
Can you hear me?
There's a breathless, wheezing voice above me as the horrible bouncing ride continues. I just want to sleep. There's another sound, an odd droning one, and the earthquake finally stops.
Amicus! Get in, you fool!
Neferu, he's having seizures. He has pustules all over his body.
The voice above me sobs and gasps, and I want to reach up and put a hand over its mouth so that it's quiet, so that I can sleep.
Calm yourself. Virginia's having a physician flown into the palace. You need to...
Everything, mercifully, goes quiet again. I float through a void of quiet, soft black clouds that tickle and nip at my skin. It itches, and I want to itch, but something seems to be holding me down. I open my eyes slowly, staring up at the ceiling. I'm starting to get really annoyed that I can't just fall asleep. I have so much to do tomorrow. We're going on a trip to Naples, I think, to try the authentic Italian pizza. I'm going to have a terrible time if I don't get at least a little. I realize that I can't move. Icy fear grips my chest, and at the same time, I see something large scuttling up the wall. A giant spider skitters upwards, its movements off, like it's a puppet being pulled up by strings. It moves across the ceiling, and even though it's the size of a giant crab, I can't move at all.
Adastra arachnids are disturbingly large.
I grit my teeth as it comes to a stop above my head, then falls straight down onto my face, legs fanned out. Get off! I shove at it, at the things pressing at my face. I told you to hold him down!
I'm trying. Marco, listen to me, please. You're safe. We're helping you.
I focus on the monsters above me, their massive white teeth and red glowing eyes. Their horrible hands come down to press on me, and I feel the prickling pain all over my skin. I thrash around, but it's no use. They're too strong.
He's having another seizure.
I lean against the side of a building on the empty road. The night is peaceful and quiet. Mostly quiet. I hear clopping sounds in the distance. Galloping sounds. I frown and lean forward a bit, looking up the dark road. I see a horse running toward me, its eyes glowing red, and spit flies from its mouth. Afraid, I press myself closer to the building, but the horse ignores me. Instead, as it runs past me, I see that it's dragging something. A wolf's headless body, the arms spread out, the stump leaving a long, red streak along the cobblestones. I open my mouth to scream. We have nothing on record for his species.
Then profile him.
Is there a reason why we don't?
Just heal him, please. It's just aviapox.
Well, clearly it has a different effect on his species. His nervous system is already damaged beyond repair. You should consider...
Things never seem to go as planned, do they? I am sorry that you had to experience this. I did not foresee it. Do not worry. You are still on the correct course. You will be able to complete this task. I just need a little time. Understand that this will not be easy, even for the parents. The pain will be temporary.
What's happening?
You will know in time, but not yet.
Time loses meaning. blackness. Simultaneously eternal and non-existent. Nightmares ebb and flow, building and fading. Scenes from my earliest childhood to my landing on Adastra, all warped by horrific and violent imagery that never happened. But as each one ends, I forget, just like any other dream, except one. I'm huddled in the seat of the ship, freezing cold, numb with desperation and the fear of impending death. How is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? I glance at the crumpled form of the wolf in the back of the ship. His head is framed by a pool of blood. The metal pipe just a few feet away where I'd dropped it. I've made a huge mistake. The anger and terror I'd been feeling over the past several hours, days, weeks, builds until I scream and smash both of my fists on the glowing panels in front of me. The next thing I know, lights blast the interior of the ship, and I cover my face with my hands. Still, the light pierces through, and I see blood red. The ship vibrates violently, and I know right away that we're being pulled into it. I reach out, despite the impossible light, uselessly pounding at the unresponsive panels. After a few moments, the brightness and heat become unbearable, and I finally throw myself to the floor, crawling away, crawling toward my wolf. Amicus, help! But the light continues to grow, and soon everything is lit up in a blinding white. The heat so intense that the metal melts underneath my hands and knees. I'm on fire. I am fire. I feel lines of molten lead course through from the base of my neck, down my spine, branching out into my limbs, even my toes and fingers. I can only float in the inferno, dumbly wondering why I still feel if I'm dead. Wondering if this is death, as the ship, the wolf, and I become part of the star. Once again, time is lost, and I only exist as fire. I stare up at the sky, the air suddenly cool as I try to comprehend the sudden change from the harsh, all-consuming starlight to the gentle, cold moonlight. Still, fire continues to lance through my head, neck, spine, and limbs in agonizing lines. My body mapped as a tortured stick figure. It hurts. Hurts more than anything I've ever experienced. But it's fading after what's happened in the star, so I try to relax in the sand. After a few minutes, I realize that I can hear the waves, and I feel something drawing me toward the water. I'm a little scared of getting up, of any movement at all, terrified that it might trigger the pain anew. But it doesn't. It almost feels like I'm not moving at all. I glide toward the water, watching the surface reflect the bright planet and moon in hypnotic ripples. Entering the lake and feeling the cold, gentle water wash over my skin is the best feeling I've ever felt. It envelops me slowly, moving up my legs, torso, and finally my head. And just like that, the pain and fire is chased away, subdued to a dull, tingly throb. I gasp in relief, somehow able to breathe under the water. I drift through the dark water, watching the globes of light dance and sway above me before I finally resurface. It's only then that I remember Amicus. Fear grips me. Was he still on that ship? Did I leave him behind in the star? I look up and see the lights glittering from the palace, and I begin to swim towards it, somehow moving much faster than I should be able to. Instead of swimming to the beach, though, I end up moving toward the balcony, straight to Amicus's room. As I get closer, I realize that someone is on the balcony. It's Amicus, and my heart fills with relief. He's got his back to the railing, leaning against it casually. Even though I can see him from behind, I realize that it's not the Amicus I know. Instead, he's in full robes, and he's a lot more skinny than I remember. I slow down, wondering why he's not looking at me with all the splashing noises I'm making. Just as I'm about to call up to him, though, I see brown arms wrap around him, smoothing over his arms and back, and that's when Amicus turns to the side. I see now that those arms belong to another wolf, smaller and brown-furred, one that I've never seen before. Amicus is doing the same to him, paws moving around his body in a way that's awkward and hesitant. A pair of young lovers making out for the first time. I watch, suddenly feeling embarrassed. I'm back in Amicus's room, and that same teenaged wolf is now on the sofa, bent over, hiding his face under his paws. I've never seen Amicus really cry, but I can tell that's what he's doing now. I feel the sense of complete and utter shame, the feeling that you've let everyone down. It consumes me. I reach out toward the young wolf, wanting to comfort him, wondering if he'll even know who I am. Suddenly, I'm sucked back into the cosmos. There is no parent this time. Instead, I float peacefully through the vacuum, staring down at what I assume is Adastra. Even though there isn't anyone here with me, I sense beings all around me. I also get a sense of approval, like their work is done.
Finish Mira's work, young human.
Just like that, I start to drift back down toward the moon, descending faster and faster until everything becomes a blur.